Right, Uhuru, welcome to the Day of Reparations. So we are going to start, I'll introduce myself in a second, but I want to start and get the energy up. So I'm going to start off the program with a chant. So it goes something like this. When I say unity through, you say reparations. Unity through. Unity through. And then when I say hands off Uhuru, you say hands off Africa. Hands off Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru. Thank you so much. I just want to give you a really warm welcome and thank you for coming out tonight to a Day of Reparations. This is our first event in a campaign that's in 5 different cities, and we are going to raise $30,000 to support the programs of Black Star Industries. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Wendy Snyder. I'm a proud member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We go into the white community to build a movement of white people's reparations. So this campaign is designed to build that unity from the white community for a movement of reparations that's a revolutionary demand by the African People's Socialist Party. And you'll learn more about that. You'll learn a lot about that tonight. And this campaign, as I said, is in 5 different cities. So we have events in Louisville, St. Louis, Tacoma, Washington, and St. Petersburg, Florida coming up. And like I said, this is the very first event. So we're very excited to kick this off. The Day of Reparations to African people is also a rallying cry. It's in unity with the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, the counteroffensive, which was put in place the day after the FBI attacked Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party on July 29th, 2022. So we are here also in the Days of Reparations to African people to promote the recent book. If someone can hold up the book, it's on the back table, that just came out by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. It's called The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. And so we have those on sale tonight. So we always start our events just acknowledging that we are on stolen land. We are on stolen indigenous land here of the Ohlone people. And we understand that the genocide of the indigenous peoples of these lands, with the theft of African people and the massive enslavement of African people, those are the 2 pillars that built this society that we're in. And that's the understanding that we have from the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. This system is on shaky ground today. So we are excited about that. And I want to salute our guests. I want to salute the Uhuru 3. Let's just give them a salute. And salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who created and founded the Uhuru movement and whose work to build a world free of colonialism is what I truly believe in. It's hard to know how to really thank Chairman for what he has done for humanity, but we can try. So thank you, Chairman, for creating African internationalism, for your steadfast leadership, your brilliant theory. And this is a theory that not only explains the world, but gives us the tools to change it. And so, Uhuru. I also want to salute, she's not here today, but I want to salute Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela, who's the second in command of the African People's Socialist Party and whose work to build Black Star Industries and the Black Power Blueprint is what is also causing the powers that be to shake in their boots. Because if this government is exposed as just being about violence and not about providing anything for the people, if that is truly exposed, that this system brings nothing but death and destruction to African, indigenous, and colonized people, then people will understand that they need to join this growing movement. And we believe that white people can understand that. We can understand that as well. And Yes, that's what we want. We want a destruction of this violent social system. I want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess, who is the chairwoman of African People's Solidarity Committee. She's the first white person in 1976 to internalize the party's understandings and to courageously build this white people's movement under the leadership of the party for material solidarity and reparations. I want to salute Comrade Chair Jesse Nevel, who's here tonight, and he is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, whose brilliant leadership made this event possible, along with the National Committee of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, and who's had such bravery in facing the attacks on the movement and on himself. I also want to salute Comrade Bakri Olatunji, who's the West Coast representative of the African People's Socialist Party and who's leading up this West Coast tour, because this tour is actually going to San Francisco, going to Los Angeles, and going to San Diego. So this is a very exciting week. And just salute all the members of that tour committee. And for those of you who don't know, Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and it's the greeting that we use in the Uhuru movement to just clearly put the question of African freedom on our minds. And so in the Uhuru movement, we understand that we can decide not to continue this legacy of the slave master for one more generation. The chairman once said in an African People's Solidarity Day, which is the precursor to this event, that he said it right here in Oakland over 30 years ago, that slavery is the legacy of white people and of Africans, that Africans inherited the poverty of the enslaved and white people inherited the wealth of the colonizer. And we inherited that wealth. We are Africans are determined to change that legacy. And what the question we have to ask ourselves as white people, what will our legacy be? Will we stand on the side of African and oppressed people's movement as they're pushing forward? And so our answer can be unity through reparations. All right. Thank you so much. So a couple housekeeping notes. Make sure your phones are on silent. Also, we have authorization by Burning Spear Media to record, so there'll be no other recording of the event. And I think the bathrooms are just outside here. If you need to use the bathroom, there are refreshments in the back. And I think that we can queue up. We want to show the Hands Off Uhuru video so that everybody's clear how this movement was attacked just 1 year ago. Cue it up.
They handed to me and my wife up here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out. Something that I would do to do. They want my wife out here that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me
They want, I don't know. Hold up.
Build a movement of white people that says, stand and all.
Yeah. This, he had the opportunity to something by, the information about. They see that because not just that we might be able to understand, but because they had it in America. To do that, and to continue to struggle of black people around the world.
So since that attack on the African People's Socialist Party, there has been not a day when there haven't been the counteroffensive and just ongoing events, ongoing work to build an anti-colonial free speech coalition. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Chair Jesse Nevel, and just to reiterate, he is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. He's a member of the African People's Socialist Party, and it's one of the Uhuru Free.
Uhuru. Hands on Uhuru. Drop the charges now. Drop the charges. Uhuru. Here, everybody. I want to start by giving a round of applause to Comrade Wendy Snyder. I want to deeply salute Comrade Wendy for all of the hard work, dedicated work that she put in for months to coordinate the local organizing committee that is putting on this incredibly important event tonight. So just again, want to express appreciation and recognition of Comrade Wendy and her hard work, and all of the comrades in the local committee, including Comrade Janet, who's sitting here with us right now, and many others. It's dangerous for me to start naming names, but all of the members of the African People's Solidarity Committee and Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in Oakland. And I also want to join and begin in saluting my leadership, our leadership in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, who we are incredibly honored to have here with us tonight, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru. And it is a great honor to be under the leadership of the chairman, to be under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. I salute the courageous and unwavering stance of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the leadership that he provides to the whole world struggle to overturn this colonial mode of production and bring about liberation for all of humanity. And we will be talking a lot more tonight about the significance of the chairman and what he has contributed to the world revolutionary struggle and our relationship to that. I also want to join in saluting the deputy chair of the African People's Socialist Party, Ona Zane Yeshitela, Uhuru to Deputy Chair Ona. And Deputy Chair Ona is not here physically, but so much of her work, her leadership will be experienced before the end of this event. We will talk about Black Star Industries. We will talk about all of the powerful, transformative programs of dual power in the hands of the African working class that Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela is responsible for building. And also want to salute Deputy Chair Ona's heroism and courage in standing up to these vicious attacks by the US government, which also targeted her, which also sent drones into her home, which she shares with Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And also want to salute the Western Regional Party Representative Bakri Olatunji, Uhuru to Representative Bakri. And just salute the many years, the decades of work that Representative Bakri has done to build the African People's Socialist Party here in Oakland and around the world. And so much of the revolutionary history of the party in Oakland is concentrated in Representative Bakri. So it's an honor to have him here with us. And I also do want to acknowledge the leadership of Chairwoman Penny Hess, who is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the cadre organization of white people working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. I have the honor to be a member of that organization, to work directly under the leadership of Chairwoman Penny. And as was mentioned earlier, it was very unexpected that she was not able to be at this event tonight, but she sends her warm revolutionary regards to all of you. And I just want to recognize and salute Chairwoman Penny Hess. And finally, I want to salute all of you who are here, all of you who came out to this event tonight, and reiterate that this is the Days of Reparations to African People campaign, hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement is the organization of white people in solidarity with the African Revolution under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, tasked with going back into our own white communities to win other white people like ourselves to stand in principled and genuine solidarity with the struggle for Black power, and specifically with the revolutionary demand for reparations to African people. The Days of Reparations to African People campaign this year will go to 5 cities. This is the first stop. The tour will also go to Louisville, Kentucky, Tacoma, Washington, St. Louis, Missouri, where it will also have a march for reparations, and St. Petersburg, Florida. And there is also other cities and people throughout the world who are involved in an international fundraising and outreach and political campaign to raise reparations for Black Star Industries. There are 3 main goals for this event tonight. One is to bring all of you into the process of building the Uhuru Solidarity Movement here in Oakland. 2 is to raise resources as reparations for the work of Black Star Industries. And 3 is to mobilize every single person here to go to Washington, D.C. for the Black People's March on the White House, led by the Black is Back Coalition, which will be raising the demand for the US government to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. It is fitting for the Day of Reparations campaign this year to start in Oakland. It is fitting because generally of the powerful history of African revolutionary struggle here in Oakland, California, but specifically because this campaign actually began in Oakland, California. In 1979, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the African People's Solidarity Committee held the first ever March Against Genocide here in Oakland. And that was the beginning of what has become an annual campaign, which is now known as the Days of Reparations to African People, to hold marches, rallies, events, speaking tours, fundraisers, and other kinds of events to win the stand of reparations to African people in the white community. It is a campaign so central to our work that it is actually mandated by the Constitution of the African People's Socialist Party that we carry this out on an annual basis to go back into the white community, win white people to the deepest possible understanding of why it is our responsibility and in our interests to unite with the African liberation movement. The Day of Reparations is a self-criticism from the white population. It begins with facing and acknowledging the truth about this social system, this country, this government, and our relationship to it. It is an opportunity, a challenge to white people to look honestly at the world, to face the reality and refuse to turn away from it, refuse to turn away from the hundreds of thousands of African and oppressed peoples who are forced into homelessness here in California and forced to live in encampments, to refuse to turn away from all of the African men, women, and children who are gunned down by the police on the streets of this country every single day, or stopped into prisons for things that white people don't even get arrested for, and refuse to turn away from the Mexican people, the indigenous people of this land who are slaughtered at the false colonial, illegitimate border that white people put there at gunpoint, as the native people attempt to come across that border onto their own land. And to refuse to turn away from the indigenous people who continue to die from the effects of colonial genocide on the so-called reservations, which are, as the chairman says, a euphemism for concentration camps. It is an opportunity and a challenge for us to white people to recognize, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela teaches us, that there is a dialectical relationship, a political and economic system that connects these brutal conditions faced by African and oppressed peoples and the social wealth and prosperity and opportunity that we as white people take for granted. That relationship, that system has a name. It's called colonialism. And as the chairman teaches us, it is more than a policy. It's more than just a few bad apples. It's not the stain on the soul of America, like Joe Biden said. It's not something the US did over here or France did over there. It's the mode of production for the whole world economy. That's what the chairman says. Colonialism is the mode of production. And there would be no United States of America without the enslavement of African people and the genocide against the indigenous people and the theft of their land. For 6 centuries, our white lives have been subsidized by murder and thievery, built on the stolen lives of African human beings and their labor forcibly and brutally exploited, their resources and land pillaged and robbed, their stolen continents of the indigenous nations and massacres and rapes of their people that continue to this day. This is what the Days of Reparations calls on us to look at honestly, to face it, and to take responsibility for it. We can join the struggle to overturn this reality. That's why you are here, because you can see that what this movement has said for over 50 years is true. White people, we cannot have any progressive movement without reparations to African people. So this year's Day of Reparations campaign has a special significance and urgency. It is reflected in its theme, No to FBI War on Black Liberation. This is a part of the hands-off Uhuru counteroffensive to push back against the US government's vicious attacks on Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement, and to unite with the growing anti-colonial free speech movement that the chairman and the party have tirelessly and relentlessly worked to build. As we saw in that video, and as many of you know, last year on July 29th, the US government, the FBI, raided 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru movement, including the home of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onizine Yeshitela, with the military-style assault rifles, armored vehicles, tanks, flashbang grenades, drones, handcuffing them behind their backs and terrorizing the African community. And 9 months later, the US government indicted Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself on 2 counts of 2 federal criminal statutes, 18 USC 371, 18 USC 951, charging that Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has fought for over 60 years of his life for the liberation of African people, is actually functioning as some kind of agent in a criminal conspiracy by the Russian government to sow discord in the United States and undermine some alleged US democracy. Chairman Omali Yeshitela is the primary target of this attack. And it is not because the US government thinks he's an agent of Russia. It's because they know who he is. They know he's an agent of African people and of African liberation. They know that he has worked for the past 50 years with the explicit mission of rebuilding and completing the Black Revolution of the 60s that the FBI and the US government worked so hard to militarily destroy. As far as the FBI was concerned, Chairman Omali Yeshitela was never supposed to happen. When the Black Revolution was destroyed under COINTELPRO, which involved the FBI and every other federal and local and state and county agency, police agency in this country, that was supposed to be the end of the Black Revolution. And in May of 1972, the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, died. He drew his last breath, thinking that his work was done, thinking that he had been successful in annihilating the Black Revolution. And just a few weeks after J. Edgar drew his last breath, the African People's Socialist Party drew its first breath. So I know I have to wrap up, but I just want to say, I encourage people to read the indictment. It is quite a read. I definitely encourage you to read the indictment and read our motion for dismissal of the indictment that was filed by Leonard Goodman, one of the Uhuru 3 attorneys. Note in the indictment, so in a conspiracy indictment, they list what they call overt acts. Overt acts that the conspirators are alleged to have carried out in furtherance of the conspiracy. These overt acts included things such as holding a reparations tour. Okay, so you can pick up the new book, Reparations Now, The Verdict is In, that was just republished. The testimonies from the first World Tribunal on Reparations held by the African People's Socialist Party under the leadership of the chairman in 1982. That following year, the party held its first reparations tour. You can look at that book and see one of the other overt acts is charging the United States government with the crime of genocide. Under UN law, international law, look at that book. They held the US government accountable for genocide at the World Tribunal in 1982. And part of what the chairman did to win these questions, to influence the whole world with the global household word and demand of reparations, was create the African People's Solidarity Committee, extend the struggle into the white community, and break the isolation the US government wanted to impose on the Black Revolution. That is why they had to attack the Uhuru Solidarity Center. That is why they had to indict Chairwoman Penny Hess and myself as a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee. So we are here tonight on October 2nd, 2023, here in Oakland for the kickoff of yet another overt act reparations tour. And I want to congratulate all of you for your participation in this reparations conspiracy. You are now all unindicted co-conspirators. Please give yourself a round of applause. So I want to close by saying they wanted to scare you, they wanted to silence you, they wanted to intimidate you, but your presence here is evidence that they failed. This day of reparations to African people is our act of resistance, and it is our commitment to go beyond words towards concrete action. So before this event is over, we are going to raise money. We're going to raise money as a concrete expression of reparations to African self-determination. The goal is for the national goal of this campaign is $30,000. This event tonight has a part of that, but $30,000 is a drop in the bucket of what is owed to African people. One person could contribute that amount, and that person very well could be in this room. So we will talk more about what that means as this event unfolds tonight. I'm very excited to be a part of this and very honored. And I want to just remind everybody that if you get nothing else out of what I just said, remember this: all out for November 4th to the Black People's March on the White House. I invite you, I urge you to join the reparations contingent at the Black People's March on the White House, an opportunity for white people to do what we failed to do in the 1960s when the US government created a reign of terror against the African Revolution, assassinations, indictments, imprisonment. White people fled the scene and got distracted by something else and abandoned the field of struggle. But like the chairman says, not this time around, because the party is here, the African People's Solidarity Committee is here, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is here, and you are here. So we'll talk more about that before this event is over. But again, I just want to thank everybody and say, hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela, hands off Uhuru. Unity through Uhuru.
We are so glad that you are here and that you refuse to turn away. We are really, really grateful that you are here and committing these overt acts of reparations. So we're going to queue up the Black is Back video to hear about the call to march in the Black People's March on the White House. Ready to go?
This is Margaret Kimberly. All out Saturday, November 4th, for the 15th annual Black People's March on the White House, sponsored by the Black is Back Coalition. Drop the charges on Omali Yeshitela, chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, leader of the Uhuru movement. On July 29, 2022, the FBI launched pre-dawn raids on 7 properties of the Uhuru movement in 2 cities, using assault weapons, flashbang grenades, and drones. Chairman and 2 others, known as the Uhuru 3, have been indicted by the U.S. government and face federal charges. Chairman Yeshitela said the FBI wants to put me on trial for fighting the Black community. Put the colonial state on trial, we will get it. An attack on free speech for Chairman Omali Yeshitela is an attack on everyone's free speech. March in the banner of the anti-colonial free speech movement. Register for the Black People's March on the White House on Saturday, November 4th at blackpeoplesmarch.com or go to handsoffahuru.org. Drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. Power to the people.
Right. So consider going to Washington DC to march, to be in the march. Yeah, let's see a show of hands. Who can go to Washington DC? Ooh, yeah, okay, there we go. I'm going. There's also going to be a West Coast march, Black People's March in Los Angeles. So there's some information about that. If you can't make it across the US, you can go down to LA to represent. So, and also I just want to say that there's, I think, something like 40 organizations involved in this Black People's March on the White House. It's incredible. There's organizations like the Tampa 5, which is students, Black students and others who were basically facing charges from just organizing on their campus in University of South Florida. There's the organization of the Cop City in Atlanta. People might know about that. There's also the organization of Free Leonard Peltier. That committee is going to be present at the march, and also just the Black is Back Coalition, which I think is something like 20-something organizations are part of that. So this is powerful. You don't want to miss it. So encourage you to come out. Now we have some solidarity statements, and I would love to bring up Betsy Stone from the Socialist Workers Party. Thank you, Betsy, for being here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and others from the Socialist Workers Party to be here to share with you why we so strongly support the fight to drop the charges. Very big stakes are involved, we think. As has been explained here too. Not just for those that are threatened with jail, but for all working people, the Black movement, the union fighters, political parties like the Socialist Workers Party. As the video pointed out, the prosecutor's real target is the Constitution's protection of free speech. And also the very right to organize, to conspire, as was just pointed out, as they put it. So I come over on this side?
Oh, yeah, just.
Straight? Is
Otherwise,
that better?
we'll pick it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Lately, a lot of liberals and others have been saying that the FBI has changed. That it's okay to give them a free rein. That it's not the same old FBI that has targeted the Black movement and the unions in the past. But the capitalists are still in power, and the political police exist, and it has always existed to protect the interests of the wealthy. And to go against anybody that opposes them, and including like organizations like my own, which are fighting to replace the capitalist power with workers' power. Now, the Foreign Relations Foreign Agents Registration Act. This was first passed under the Franklin Roosevelt administration in 1938. And, this is the bill that they're using against the APSP and Uhuru. Right after that was passed, the FBI launched an assault on the Socialist Workers' Party and for our political views. And 18 of the leaders of our party, including leaders of the Teamsters Union, went to jail. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Cuban File, but they were also targeted by the same act. So we're against it, the act and its use by both parties. We also have to look at the fact that right around the time that they attacked the headquarters of the APSP, they went to Mar-a-Lago, armed to the teeth. They charged, even going back to before Trump was elected, they tried to charge him with what? Being in collusion with Moscow. So we have to think about this. Whenever one ruling class party starts to criminalize the other and begins to attack our democratic rights in the process, it will all come, precedents will be made, and it is all going to come down hardest on the working people. After the raids that I just spoke of, the FBI went down to Puerto Rico, and they started talking to people that had been on a brigade to Cuba, trying to intimidate them. And they stood up very well. They said, "You do not have to talk to the FBI." And I know in all my years in the movement, the Socialist Workers' Party actually had a court case against the FBI, CIA, and all the different agencies. We actually brought one of our books about it here, if people are interested. Many years in court, unbelievable number of agents had gone into our movement, dirty tricks, violence, and they were never, finally, actually, we won the case because they were never able to prove that we had done what they were supposedly looking for. Right today, defending constitutional freedoms remains central to advancing the struggles of working people and all the oppressed. So I wanted to say an injury to one is an injury to all, and drop the charges.
Thank you so much. Betsy Stone of the Socialist Workers' Party. So now I would like to bring up Paul Larity, and he is from the Association for Investment in Political Action Committees. popular action committees and also generously donated the space.
Thank you, Daniel, for all this. I don't want to talk too much about us, but I want you to have an idea of who we are. The Association for Investment in Popular Action Committees is not just about money, but it is about sponsoring committees and groups that fight against committees of the oppressed who are fighting for the oppressed and to remove the oppression. Because only the oppressed can liberate the oppressed. And we have had, I think, 20 projects altogether over the last almost 20 years. We have several projects now. Each project gets 501c3 status by becoming a project of what we do. And all we do is provide the fiscal sponsorship. But we only do it for oppressed people who are doing resistance. That's the only ones we do it for. And we're always welcoming new projects, saying goodbye to. By the way, I want to say a word about the International Committee for the Freedom of the Cuban Five. We sponsored them, and they actually are the only project who succeeded in accomplishing what their name said they were out to do. So anyway, that's what we do. The association, you can find our website online, but you won't find very much information there, and there's a reason for that. You can imagine it, okay? But all of our projects have, many of them have very extensive websites, and they operate under their name, which is a DBA of the corporation, so that the corporation sends the report to the IRS and liberates the committee to do the job they need to do. We sponsor resistance groups throughout the Middle East and Latin America, Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, and in Palestine and Syria and Lebanon and in Iran. We have groups working in all of those areas and more. And so I just want you to know who we are. And if you need our help, we don't provide financial help, we provide fiscal help. We help you to get the money and the resources in order to do your project. And we're very proud to sponsor Uhuru because they are exactly the kind of organization that we're talking about. Thank you for giving us the privilege of sponsoring you. Thank you.
When I say unity through, you say reparations, unity through. Unity through. Thank you so much for those solidarity statements. We really, really appreciate it. So the next, yes.
I'm sorry, this has to be added because we started out with all of the projects contributing a certain amount to the overhead of the organization. We don't need to anymore. We don't take a single cut from any of the organizations that we sponsor because now we have sponsors from so many other, I don't know, foundations or whatever. We were very surprised to see how many we're ready to send their money to the organization that's doing the sponsorship. Okay, so it's absolutely free to all the organizations that are working with us. Thank you. I'm sorry. I have to-
Okay, right on. All right, so as was mentioned earlier, our chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny Hess, could not be here tonight. But we do have a presentation, a statement that we're going to run. And just to reiterate who she is, Chairwoman Penny Hess has been the chair of the African People's Socialist Party since the founding, and she is tirelessly led the organization that goes out into the white community to raise reparations and works directly under the leadership of the party. So she's also one of the Uhuru Three, which you probably know by now. So we're going to hear from Penny in this video. Thank you.
As always, I have to salute my leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Deputy Chairwoman Omali Yeshitela, and I want to say that there is really nothing that I would understand about this question, the question of reparations, the question of genocide, or anything about the world and how it got to be the way it is, without the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, understanding of the colonial mode of production and African internationalism. So I thank you so much, Chairman, for that. It is something that's very powerful and set for the colonizer to understand this and what we can do. And I also want to say that two of the overt acts that come out of Jesse talked about that are listed in the indictment against the chairman, against the Uhuru Three, are the reparations tour and the genocide petition. And just to say that reparations tours, we have been doing those for about 50 years, 45, at least since the 1980s. We have done the reparations tours every year. We're getting ready to do that again. We have days of reparations staff for people. And and just if we can look at our earliest photographs of the March Against Genocide and see, there was called the March Against Genocide that APSP and the Solidarity Movement carried out every year. Now it's called the March for Reparations, but we had banners and posters against the genocide of African people. And so I want to say I brought my thoughts here because I really wanted to discuss because I think that the existence of African People's Solidarity Committee under the leadership of African Liberation Party of the African Working Class, this is APSP, and our mass organization, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, are the only organizations, or I should say organization, created by an African Revolutionary Party for strategic and specifically to deploy white people, not charity, not as a favor, but to go in behind enemy lines into the colonized population to win other white people and to raise and fight for reparations. And that is what we do. That is who we are. There is no other organization of white people that is created for reparations to win in theory and practice. I want to salute there are who else have raised it. Comrade Ivan, who works with Nation of Islam, has written many books on reparations. We give for being out there. Met her. And you maybe I don't know, but the question is the central question in the world, the primary contradiction is the struggle against colonialism upon which this system was built. And there's no other long-lasting organization under the leadership and direction of an African working class party. There's not another African working class party than the African People's Socialist Party that is openly fighting to unite African people everywhere, the liberation and unification of Africa. And that we have, we have a long-term practice as APSP that unites with the discipline and the urgency that the African People's Socialist Party has brought to this question. And what APSC, African People's Solidarity Committee, and Group Solidarity Movement do is actually raise resources for the programs and campaigns of the party, for the Black Power institution, the Black Power movement, and more. Of the party in terms of actual programs, but also in terms of campaigns that are needed at various times. And this is what we have done since our founding in 1976. The very first work assigned by the party to APSC was to raise resources for an African woman who was in prison for 22 years for killing a man that tried to rape her on his friend. And suddenly she got his gun and this was at a time when white women's movement was attempting to say that this was a woman's right to defend herself, to self-defense, because the party raised the struggle to Jesse Woods as a question of colonial violence against the entire African people. And it was a powerful campaign that APSC took on under the leadership of the party, the National Committee to Jesse Woods. There was also called on to build to raise resources for the African National Prison Organization and the African National Reparations Organization. These are some of the very earliest things that we took on, and it meant that we had to find a way not just to talk about this, but to raise resources, to win white people to understand colonial mode of production and the responsibility of acknowledging what white people have done. That's why we have cultural violence. The atrocities that white people did and still commit today to African people, indigenous people, are by and large committed and happened historically by everyday white people, not the government. So that's why the chairman, called it the white people's state. It is in the white people's state, and I think Carmen pointed out, that people like Earl White who instigated the murder, slaughter of people, take it off. But if they fight for reparations, you got to die by this, under the leadership of the African movement. The thing that we have to say and say is part of raising reparations in reality is we have to tell white people what colonialism means is documented here and colonizers. And how white people in the US, in Africa, wherever we have gone around the world to as part of the colonial domination of Africa and colonized peoples, and the people in the US, the way that white people could burn up human beings publicly, and or cut a baby out of an African woman's stomach and then go home and kiss their own children, good night, and go to church the next day. And say that this is the highest civilization on the planet. So I just wanted to say that that is what we take out to the white people, because we have always cited the genocide convention and showed how every listed manifestation of genocide that President Obama just said is experienced by the African population every single day. That there was no word for genocide until white people showed other people in Europe as demolished or that when white people were slaughtering Africans, Congo, Spain, in Congo, in what happened in India, all of this, there was no word for genocide. White people just did that. And that was the right of white people. There was no law against it, no indictments. So just to say that one of the first things that we did is go to the law genocide in about 1980, which then became Marxist genocide, and now the March for reparations. In Berkeley, in Oakland, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. He started making politics. Very popular still in the Bay Area. The big banners saying reparations to African people, stopping U.S. war on the Black community, and the free structure out, and pretty soon we had white people waiting in lines to get to support this. And so, yeah, so we talked about the solidarity, and after the first tribunal on reparations to African people in 1982, we understood that solidarity, reparations was the same thing. And this became, I'm sure this is what we put out. So I just want to say that, and I say that the fighting for reparations to African people is incredibly positive stand. It is a liberating stand for white people to explain who we are in the world, how we can rectify and regain a principled relationship to African people and the people on the planet Earth, not seen on the map at the expense of African people, but under their leadership, this is what is solve the problems of the entire planet. The indigenous people have their manufacturing power, and this will be the future for white people, for all people on this planet Earth. So I just wanted to say that, and for any white people who are watching, we're getting ready for our days of reparations. Again, this year, our tour and our campaign, and you can go to Uhuru, solidarity.org. You will sign up for that. Be part of the stand, reparations to African people. So unity group.
All right, Uhuru, thank you, Penny. I wish she could be here in person, but thank you so much for that statement. And I just, if I can pull it up fast, I know we have people tuning in from all over. So I'm just gonna try to share that real quick. Let's see, we've got, it's the end of the doc. Okay, wait.
Yeah, it's end of the questions.
There, okay. Yeah, we got people tuning in from New Orleans. Shout out to Charles. Shout out to Kitty in St. Louis, Virginia, and Louisville. Janet in Tacoma, Diane in Gainesville, Johan in St. Pete, MK in Berkeley, Sandy in Washington State. So Uhuru out there to you. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so next up, I'm really excited to introduce our poet tonight is Maya Ravenel Day. And Maya is a junior at Oakland School for the Arts, just right around the corner. A true 2022 and 2023 Youth Speaks United Slam finalist and a member of Chapter 510's Youth Advisory Board. Maya is always ready to involve themselves in the arts, has read their poetry at events for the DeYoung Museum, Black and Asian Solidarity Organization, the Mesa Cultural Farm Celebration, and more. Poetry is Maya's breath. In times of stress, intense emotions, busyness, and even happiness, poetry allows them to keep up with the world's rapid moments. Poetry's rejuvenating and free attributes have always kept Maya writing even when she was young. They couldn't stop even if they tried. Come on up, Maya. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hello. I have two poems to share with you. One of them is a poem I wrote for a Juneteenth event, the first Juneteenth celebration organized by the city of Oakland. And then another one is one I wrote in response to how the world is. I think my brother secretly puts his clothes in my laundry. My floor, ironically. I've been down to pick up the clothes sewn with tags, sewn letters reading 100% cotton. The price underneath reads $7.99. Apparently the same value as the blood drawn from hands perked in scars, hand-picked reservoirs of economic promise cotton, stuffed in the palms of body stuffed beyond the warming sun, gone. Locked behind bars and barbed wire, men in orange attire bending down to pick the future sales of buyers, 100% cotton, $7.99. Tell me $7.99 is still worth inmate 79984-213. Swept under the loophole of Amendment 13, the 13th Amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime ratified on December 1865, the year all slaves were returned their lives, because of course, slaveholders said, hey guys, you're free, goodbye. I'm going to miss such dark-skinned servants and cracking my whip to make you compliant, but I was the one being defiant, evading abolition till force now. Soldiers knock on my door, but 2 years long is a pretty good score, so enjoy such freedom if any exists, and don't forget to visit. The world is cruel and has not yet apologized to you. To them, such an event that lives in the past should die in the past. We are on new turf, immersed in racialism more overt, false promises is our curse. The 1st of January freed all slaves in Confederate states. For the Union, you may keep your slaves. There is no more space for any grace. We consented to your freedom with ink to paper, proclaiming no more bending down and picking. The clock has stopped ticking from winter to spring. Master is no longer king. Rise from your knees of worshiping the deity that left last night's bruising, left to live with misshapen bodies. The 19th of June, 1865. Marched General Granger, relaying emancipation through his voice and power. Troops beside him as slaves were reunited with freedom once again. In Texas. Because once Texas was shredded in the message, this announcement so important was ended in Texas. But word from slaves on a plantation in Texas sing songs that they are no longer slaves, songs that travel in the crevices of the state's borders and out, trombones of celebrations doused in the confetti flying in the air with the dirt our feet kicked up as we dance with the wind levitating in the alchemy of our emotions, closing our eyes and feeling the sounds of triumph beaten into the drums the band plays, the oceans we've suppressed now running down our cheeks, water dancing with brothers and sisters, hovering in our silk gowns and suits that drape in the carriages vine and roses, twisting like crowns in our hair. This commemoration, snowballing through decades, gained prominence from its birthplace, Texas, ironically among the last states to abolish slavery, yet the first state to officially recognize Juneteenth as a holiday, now celebrated everywhere, honoring our lineages and cultures through food, music, dance, poetry, love, seething and steaming in our streets, continuously being sown in our society, etched so easily like the strings in the shirt I hold, staring at the cotton label with pride and sorrow. Seeing change is being able to see how $7.99 is worth more than a price tag. But seeing change is also being able to see how $7.99 is worth more than a price tag. How the price of our ancestors' freedom led to today. Thank you. And then this last poem is called My Mother Told Me. My mother told me When we get in the store, you better not look at nothing, you better not touch nothing. My mother told me, always ask for a receipt because it's proof that you paid. My mother told me, if you were ever pulled over by the police, you speak with regard stated to your tongue and cooperate. Do you hear me? My mother told me, I see a beautiful girl with passion and drive in her soul, a heart full of love for the people she befriends, a growing woman, built with the nails of respect and the wood of these floor beds. You used to run your small feet around, you speak with power. I never tire of seeing you laugh, you change, you breathe. I love you, my love, I love you. But the world does not see you through my eyes. To them, you are nothing but unmolded clay with opinions. Only your skin speaks for you. Cursing your existence, their spit like acid in our hair. All our oppressors here is that you are a threat. A liability to inequality you breathe too loud. I cannot stand your human nature. You are supposed to be a slab of labor that does not hurt my sensitive eyes. Why can't you follow my words like God? If your ancestors could, then why can't you please walk off the face of this flat earth and sink into suffocation for my satisfaction? We do not love you. We do not want you. Feel free to go back to your country where this land of the free is not free to you. Dear oppressor, if you cannot listen to our protests in the streets that flood your social media, if you cannot listen to the bones of my brothers standing together in their exhausted bodies, the children that thrive off of bad neighborhoods littered in potholes, the speeches our leaders bring through the ground in fury like ox swords in cement, shattering roads with our vocalized resistance, letting y'all know we ain't Black history, we history. If you cannot listen to the tired screams of mothers receiving that phone call their child was murdered, by men who wear a blood-covered badge traveling back to the catcher's star, the pain in our persistence, then read my lips. I'm a walking human body with muscles surrounded by blood like yours. My veins are not the string to sew the stripe in our flag. I am not a body to beat until the stars are drowning my vision. Congratulations. You have succeeded in instilling fear for the man in blue, but I am here to remind you, I am more than my skin. I am a name in the making. Stop calling me Black. Do not summarize my identity. I'm a proud Afro-Indigenous voice. My culture is not poison the tongue. I can say it with pride. You could say it too. I cannot bend my heritage to your satisfaction, nor bleach my melanin for your unreasoned, unseasoned irrationality. Every step my ancestors took planted seeds from corn rows, rode through waves to swear our food, yet blood did not lie. And it soaks our waters and gargles springs. How many chipped bones are eroded in the sandcastles your children make? You are my people too. We are spirit in man, but you cannot ignore us. And when voice gives out, my silence will speak for me. I will fight for my people. Living in a world that has not changed, how do I bring a child into this life, knowing they cannot live without a conversation that shouldn't exist? Explaining a rule book of survival, the same conversation my mother once told me. My mother told me, baby, never should a parent outlive their child. Never should I see your name in the news under another hate crime that will not be my daughter's face for inspirations on the murals on the buildings I walk past. Never should you be crushed by the system in one hand and humanity in the other. Never should you be failed as a living being. I love you, my love, I love you, but the world does not see you through my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so powerful. Thank you so much. So it's my honor to introduce the keynote speaker for tonight. And I won't belabor the introduction, but for those of you who came in after I introduced Chairman Omali Yeshitela, I just want to say a few words. This is the founder and the leader of the Uhuru movement, somebody who has fought tirelessly for African liberation, who's been on the side of oppressed people's freedom and justice struggles since he was a young man. And we are also featuring his latest book, which is called The Verdict is In, Reparations Now. So make sure you get that book before you leave tonight. And I will get out of the way and bring up Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Let's give him a warm salute.
First of all, I'd really like to express my appreciation to dear comrade Wendy. Whom I've known for almost forever. And Daniel, I'm at your mercy. Please be gentle. I'd also like to really express my appreciation to comrades Bakari Olatunji, who extraordinary leader of our movement, has been for a long time. It was Bakari. Bakari is a nurse. He's retired now, but it was he who awakened me early in the morning to let me know that they had just brought Huey P. Newton into the hospital where they had shot him in the head. And at that moment, we went to work and made a determination that by the time of his funeral, we would have defined who Huey P. Newton and the Black Panther Party were. It was absolutely necessary because that first morning we saw newspaper headlines, things like from a prime minister to a bum. And that moment they were going to use the murder of Huey P. Newton as the death knell to the Black liberation movement in this country. So Bakari is the one who informed me that. And Bakari was one of the most significant forces for one of the dual power programs that we created here in Oakland, where we created a mobile free health clinic that we took in the most oppressed, economically depressed sectors of the city, taking healthcare. We had something like 40 volunteer healthcare workers that we took into housing projects and things like that. And then the city prohibited us from doing it, and then created their own so that it wouldn't be missed, their own mobile entity, and until they were certain we were out of the way, and then they stopped it altogether. It was called the Bobby Hutton African People's Free Mobile Clinic. It was named for little Bobby Hutton, who was the first member of the Black Panther Party that was gunned down here in the city of Oakland, along with contributions by the FBI and other federal agents. So I just wanted to acknowledge Bakari. He's been an extraordinary leader. He's been here for a long time. His child is here too. His children grew up in the movement, I'm happy to say. Also, we're going to talk a lot, and it has been mentioned, at least inferred, some of the work that we do. We're anti-colonialists to the bone. And this has been a fundamental struggle that we've been involved in for many, many, many years. And one of the strategical components of our work is the creation of what we call dual and contending power. These are anti-colonial projects. These are projects designed to negate the influence of colonialism. And colonialism is simply total rule by foreign and aliens of a people. And it's what constitutes this entity that we live on now that's named for a white man, right? They call America, right? The indigenous people who nobody even talks about usually unless they're in the room, right? So colonialism is a fundamental contradiction. And we see it as more than just a policy. We see it as something that, at least since for the last 600 years, when Portugal set out and initiated this process of selling Black people and creating the plantation system off the island, Madeira Islands there of Africa, created the process that brought sugar in abundance to Europe, that changed Europe. So that now what is now called Europe didn't exist at the moment. But now provided energy that enhanced the ability for people to work and things like that. And so it became plentiful. And this plantation system was something that was spread throughout the world. It was a policy initially. Portugal initiated this as a policy. This is a good get rich quick scheme, because Portugal, if you look at where Portugal is on the map, you see it's almost a non-entity. It's just there. It's like an appendix, right? People are trying to figure out what the hell is it for, right? And so Portugal sets off there. We've heard of people like Prince Henry the Navigator, et cetera, et cetera. Prince Henry had nothing to navigate until he initiated this project against Africa. I'm not trying to slander Prince Henry, but it's just an objective truth. And so this was a policy that caught on, and other entities in this territory that we now call Europe, where it was initially just this space of warring tribes fighting against each other, identifying themselves primarily in relationship to each other. You had Celts, you had Normans, and all these other people. That's how they identified themselves until with the assistance of Portugal, they discovered the rest of us. And the whole world economy got organized through this process of slavery and colonialism. There was no world economy before then. I think it's really important for us to understand this, because it helps to shape our consciousness. Our understanding and interpretation of the world is based on this, how this whole world economy came about and how it functions even today. So here you have, for the first time, this world economy being constructed, and it's being constructed at the expense of Africa, and especially of indigenous peoples in what we now characterize as the Americas, which is not named for anybody who is indigenous to this territory. And tremendous amount of value came to this territory. And so now we don't see the Goths and Normans and et cetera identifying themselves primarily in relationship to each other, but to the rest of us. This is where you see the emergence of the white man. This is where you see the emergence of Europe, which was not something that was generally understood. It came together as a part of this project of colonialism. And upon this edifice, Karl Marx talked about it. He said something to the effect of that what he characterized as wage slavery, which is an interesting concept, said wage slavery in Europe has as its pedestal slavery pure and simple, and what he called the New World. That's us, right? He even went so far as to talk about the internally indigenous people in the Americas into the mines, bringing up gold and silver. He talked about how the war on what was characterized as East India, the Indians, all of this came into created this process of creating wealth that Marx characterized as the primitive accumulation of capital, because they had to answer the question, where the hell does this capitalism come from? Everybody who's ever tried to open up a candy store knows that you have to have what? Startup capital. Where does it come from? He says, it looks like we are involved in this vicious trap here. Because in order for there to be capitalist production, there must be capitalist accumulation. But in order for there to be capitalist accumulation, there must be what? Capitalist production. Therefore, we must presuppose an accumulation of capital that did not originate with capitalist production, but was the starting point. He said that starting point that he characterized as primitive accumulation, right? Turning Africa into warring for the commercial hunting of black skins, et cetera. I just think it's really important. I just wanted to say that because the whole capitalist system, all the exploitation, all the oppression that we talk about, all the wars that we see visited upon the peoples of the world has its origin there. And it's important for us to be able to see that, right? So I wanted to say that, and I was just saluting Bakri. There's so many people in this room, old friends, comrades that we fought with, struggled with for so many years, participated in our movement, and I'm so glad to see you as well. I wanted to also salute my dear comrade, Omali Yeshitela, who's been referenced. And some people may think she's been referenced by people who are trying to suck up to me. But that's not the case. And once you meet Omali Yeshitela, you will know what I'm talking about. Because part of the dual power projects that we're talking about constitute something like 50 different economic and political entities throughout this country, and that's also being introduced to various other places in the world. And she presides over all of that. Furniture store here, and in Philadelphia, the markets that we have established. We have a market in Philadelphia has more than 100 and some odd vendors that come there once a month. They help to feed their families, keep the money circulating in the impoverished, desperately impoverished African community. So I wanted to acknowledge her, and also to extend my appreciation to comrades Penny Hess, who is not here. Penny has been involved in this movement for a long time, right? And has traveled everywhere with this movement. She's been a real cadre. Wherever it's been called for her to go, she's been there. And it's in this country, Africa, various other places around the world, Penny Hess has been there. And I really want to appreciate the young, dynamic Nevel, who functions as the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Do you know one thing that means that the state has failed is in the 1960s, what they were able to do was they terrorized people, especially around the Russian communists, the Red Scare. And the Red Scare started a long time before the 1960s. In fact, the charges that we are faced with now have their origin really in 1917. 1917 is significant for, in some people's mind, for the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. Of course, there was so many other things happening in 1917 that helped to punctuate the significance of the Bolshevik Revolution. And that was, as you know, during this time, we are talking about what was characterized as the first world imperialist war to redivide the world, wasn't it? Yeah. Who were they talking about redividing? They were talking about the colonial people. These are forces who are now engaged in this war, this brutal, murderous campaign to redivide the world. In fact, one of the issues that they dealt with was, because this is where we find the advent, when that war ended, the Versailles Treaty. One of the things that came about was the creation of the League of Nations, which is a precursor to the United Nations. And the League of Nations was something that was initiated by Woodrow Wilson, US president, but he wasn't able to get the Congress to support it. And so, but at this League of Nations meetings they were having, one of the things they were debating who was getting what parts of Africa. And they were particularly and specifically at one juncture talking about what they call Southwest Africa, as characterized as Namibia today. And they were talking who they were going to give it to. It's really extraordinary. That's when Garvey said, Africa, Marcus Garvey, Africa for Africans at home and abroad. And he led a movement of 11 million Black people. It was an extraordinary anti-imperialist force that barely recognized today. He's not recognized precisely because he raised up the question of the liberation of Africa. That was the single most critical question. That was the colonial question. All over the world, African people we are part of the revolution of Africa, but we are part of the revolution of the Americas as well. You can't look at the Americas without seeing Africa there, almost every way. So that was a part of the struggle. So we have this creation, this whole colonial mode of production, where all the production, world economy for the first time, The parasitic is defined by parasitism. Deep, profound parasitism defines this colonial mode of production. And so the parasitism, the exploitation that you see in the capitalist system has its origin there. That's where it's born. That's where it was birthed, et cetera. To the extent that when Karl Marx wrote Capital, you know where he got his money from, because he was poor. He was at this time, when I say he was poor, I don't mean he was born into social poverty, but Marx had no money. He was poor. Often he had no money. Where did he get his money from? Somebody will say Frederick Engels, right? From Engels, and Engels got the money from his daddy. And where did Engels' daddy get his money from? Part of his money came from textile, from cotton picked by slaves, African people, Black people like me in the Caribbean. So here we are, not even seen, not even recognized, picking the cotton that allowed for Karl Marx to write this extraordinary tome, Capital. Isn't that something? We've been there all along. We've been here. We've been here. And so I just wanted to mention those things. There's some things that Jesse, I wish they'd have Jesse in the courtroom. You hear him sum up, boom, 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 boom. This is what it's about. That's the case. I don't even know the case number. Jesse go, case number, such and such a thing, right? I like that, Jesse. And that's that, and we are dealing with these insidious charges. Here, the notion that I'm a Russian agent, it ignores so much, but it makes certain assumptions too. Russian boogeyman, the Russian boogeyman. I grew up as a child, and there's somebody in this room who also had this experience, even as children, where you're taught the bomb is going to drop anyway. Hide under the desk if the bomb comes. If the bomb comes, there ain't going to be no desk. You understand what I'm saying? But this is what we're taught. Yeah, frightened. You know, they wrote movies, insidious movies that suggested the Russians and the communists were going to come and get you and go to sleep, and the communists will get you. What's the movie that they made? The movie that they made where the pods, you know, what happened if you go to sleep, body snatchers. You go to sleep, all right, you have to be attentive all the time because those communists, those body snatchers will come and grab you, and they're all like automatons, right? And you know why they call us automatons? Because we're disciplined, because we have a political line, because they can't just manipulate us and make us go here and there when they want to, because we're African internationalists, because we're revolutionaries, because we're disciplined, because we are guided by social science. And this is the thing that, so they're attacking that. Godless you are. Is that Nietzsche? So anyway, we're talking about, you know, this terror about communists and Russians, but it won't work now. There's a profound crisis that's existing in the whole world. They can't contain it with this Russia nonsense. The solidarity move, and then not just Russians, Black people. So we got the 60s, you got the Russians coming from one angle, and you got those Black people coming too, you know, et cetera. So this is enough to terrorize any normal, ordinary, red-blooded white person, American in this country, right? But it won't work this time. And it won't work for so many reasons. The crisis that's being experienced today, they had crushed the anti-colonial movement. 1962, an extraordinary movement happened in Havana, Cuba, where the Tricontinental Conference, where people came from all around the world and colonialism was on top of the agenda fight. But even before that, 1950s, Bandung, colonized people everywhere trying to get rid of this monstrosity, this colonial monstrosity, sucking our blood, sucking our resources. And we're living in a perpetual state of humiliation. Black people in this country live under a state of terror, absolute, complete terror all the time. You can't wear your hair a certain way. You can't wear your clothes a certain way. You can't be seen certain places because they might come in and bomb you. That's part of what the bombing of my house was on July 29th. They didn't just come to my house. They used flashbang grenades pre-dawn, and they roped off the entire African community, terrorized an entire community. They say because they want to serve a search warrant. So, but now we have a situation. Usually African liberation movements have not been allowed to be active, dynamic forces 3 or 4 years. We've been on the ground now for 50 some odd years. The African people have been here. And not just been here, we were founded with the intent, stated intent to complete the Black Revolution of the 1960s. That's what we've been doing. Looking at the contradictions. They isolated us in the 1960s. They isolated the Black liberation. When they killed Malcolm X, you didn't see white people marching down the streets. They murdered Fred Hampton, you didn't see that. You didn't see that even when they killed King. You didn't see that. But when they came on July 29th in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in St. Louis, Missouri, they had to go to the white community. They had to go to the white community because there are something like 130 some odd or 140 cities that these white forces are operating in, fighting for reparations and fighting to expose the genocidal assault being made on Africans and other people. People have asked, how did you survive the 1960s when they were killing? Because we opened up another front. We opened up a new front. When they attacked us, the Black community, we opened up a front in their community. In their community, in their houses, their children, etc. Now we open up the possibility, the opportunity for those who live among the colonizers, for the colonizers to escape that relationship, that nasty, foul relationship that most people in this room hate. This is what brought most of you into political actions, because you hate the social system, the consequences, what it does to people. And so now they have to fight this in their own communities, in their own bedrooms, their own living rooms, and what have you. 40 how many cities? At least 140 cities. That's what we're talking about. So this is a different situation that they have now. We have actually institutionalized our presence throughout this country. Not only that, but we are functioning in the Caribbean. We're functioning in various places in Africa. We are in South Africa, and in the townships, in the most oppressed sections of South. And it's hard to find a most oppressed and most economically deprived sector of South Africa. It's hard to find a most, because the situation is such that the majority of the people, Black people, are living under extremely difficult circumstances there. But we're there. We're in Namibia. We're in Sierra Leone. We're in Ghana. We're in Nigeria. We even have forces working in Nigeria. You heard about Nigeria, haven't you? Well, France is now belatedly acting like it's going to have to leave anyway, right? And so this is a different situation that they're contending with now. And now they have this problem of not having the entire arena to themselves. Not only the traditional contention that happens between sectors of the Atlanticist bloc or this traditional colonial bloc. Not only that happens all the time. You know, France and the United States have almost gone to war at different times in Africa when the U.S. has intruded, or France intruded on intruding on what the other has considered its own sphere of interest, right? But now the Russia that they had called dead is come back to life. China, who they had treated like garbage. You remember that? Remember that? You don't understand a Chinaman's chance. You heard that before, haven't you? They don't say that anymore. Not about China, right? And so, and you have this contention. You have contention with the entire setup that would happen in 1945 when coming out of the Second World Imperialist World War to redivide the world. That's where NATO came from. That's where the United Nations came from. That's why the International Monetary Fund came from. That's where the World Bank came from. That's the whole setup comes out of that. Now you got BRICS, you got the project that China has initiated, et cetera, all of this contending with this setup. It must be a sphincter clenching kind of problem for the ones who have been in charge of the system for such a long time. That whole Atlantic stuff is being cast aside. That's one of the problems that Trump made for them. You remember Trump? They do. You see this campaign, you see how Biden's fighting his campaign, don't you? But this Trump comes out of the gate, what's he talking about? Other than Black people and Mexicans and how nasty and horrible we are. But he's also talking about destroying NATO. So make them pay for themselves. The United Nations, Trump came out against the whole Atlanticist bloc arrangement. He had his own motives for doing that, the second bourgeoisie. He ain't no friend of ours, but he had his own motives for doing this. And you see everybody who they busted, all of Trump's forces in his whole cabinet almost went to jail because of what? Russia. Because this is the economic opportunity that they thought they saw. Russia, that would give them the ability to contend with other sectors of the bourgeoisie from that traditional Atlanticist bloc. And that's because the bourgeoisie was not absolutely comfortable with this relationship they had around Russia and China. You remember Obama, who initiated so-called Asian pivot? They're trying to move away from it, but they don't have the guts to do it. They're trying to follow Brzezinski's roadmap, leading from behind. You can bring Russia and China in and lead from behind, but Russia and China were not interested in being led. And so this represented a certain kind of problem. That's on the Obama and Brzezinski's leadership. Then you got this other phenomenon, Trump, who challenges it all. And this is a major contradiction. It's domestic contradiction. It's domestic. The social fabric of this country is rending rapidly. When you got white people climbing, looking like Spider-Man, climbing the walls to get to the Capitol, chasing the vice president through the Capitol, talking about hanging him. That's what they call a lynching. When you got people defecating on the hollowed floors of the US Capitol, sitting with the feet on the desk of the third most powerful elected force in this country, total disdain. When you got a person who's running for office, Trump in the first place, who's saying that the elections are rigged. Remember that? He said, we paid them. He said, I know they do what they're paid for, talking about presidential candidates and others. He said, I know because I pay them. I've done it. I mean, this whole thing, there was just a real assault that was being made on the existing setup here, contributing to certainly driving to the surface the deep, profound kinds of contradiction that exist in this country, because it's all false. My sister was reading, she talked about a poem, and how I get taught as a child how the 13th Amendment was all this, it ends slavery. What it does is rebrand slavery. Involuntary servitude and slavery is prohibited except for punishment of a crime. And then you see all that crime that has to be punished. And things like convict leasings, et cetera, the horrors that's visited upon African people, the horrors that's visited upon the indigenous people here, half of Mexico stolen at gunpoint. This is part of the colonial construct that we're talking about. How can you can't even imagine a capitalism. We can talk about capitalism in terms of abstract theoretical stuff, but you can't even imagine existing capitalism without taking this land from the indigenous people, without the stolen labor of African people here and around the world, without the colonial project that has consolidated as a death grip on the vast majority of people in the world. I'm just saying it. I just think it's important to mention it. So one thing I want to say is that it's really important for us to fight this case. You've heard some of the reasons, I believe in that these are genuine reasons to fight it. This whole question of free speech, the whole Constitution says you got free speech, right? That's what I'm fighting for. The American government is fighting against free speech. Isn't that an extraordinary thing? The American government fighting against free speech, and I'm in court fighting for free speech, right? But the truth of the matter is that democracy has been defined by the struggles of Black people in this country. That's just an objective truth. They say that somehow we committed a crime because the Russians were leading us because we participated in an election in 2000 for reparations. And because we did, this tour talking about genocide. They say that, but nobody fought harder in this country for the right to vote than Black people. Our churches were bombed, leaders assassinated, and what have you around the right to vote. I participated in organizing throughout the state of Florida to register Black people to vote. And this whole process that led to passage in 1965 of the Voting Rights Act that supposedly brought about universal suffrage in this country. I was one of them. But on July 29, 2022, the United States government bombed my house because of an election. Because of an election. Birmingham, Alabama, 1963, they bombed a church, killed those little Black girls. That's the stuff that we supposedly overcame with the 1965 Voting Rights Act. But that's what they attacked my house for. So I'm fighting for this democracy. And the United States government is fighting against democracy. Of course, we know that democracy is simply a form of the state, isn't it? Yeah. It really is a form of the state. But for the colonized, the highest expression of democracy is self-determination. And that's the thing that they're attacking us around. Self-determination, because we plan to be a self-governing people. We plan to live a dignified life, like all peoples fight for. And there is no dignity in being a slave. There's no dignity in a people that can't feed and clothe and house itself because some foreign enemy has got a grip on their lives. There's no dignity in people being able to say that I don't know if my child is going to have a future or not. There's no dignity in not being able to tell my child that if you go out the streets, if you run into a cop, you got to kiss his ass. There's no dignity in that. It's humiliation that we live with on a regular basis as Black people, and we're not going to do it anymore. So they don't have enough flashbang grenades and anything to stop that. We're not going to do it anymore. So I think it's important to say, for anybody who may have any questions about this, that the United States government lied. We didn't do nothing they said that we did. We didn't do it. I agree with the comrade from the Socialist Workers' Party that even if we had done stuff they're talking about, freedom of speech is the issue here. But they would liquidate the question of free speech by constructing a law that in the courtroom they say that the law is content neutral. It doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter that you've been doing this and saying this for 50 years. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that in 1952, some 4 years after the United Nations approved this convention on prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide, doesn't matter that Black people were there, we charge genocide, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that you initiated the first World Tribunal on Reparations for Black people, the first that ever happened in the world. Doesn't matter that you organized the first quantification of the amount of value stolen from Black people that makes in this country that makes reparation an issue. Doesn't matter that you've done that. They said the problem is that you did it because the Russians told you to do it. So they liquidate the whole history. They would liquidate the whole history of our people and our struggle And by making it, they said it's content neutral. The law is content neutral, doesn't matter what you said. Doesn't matter what you stand for. So now, United States is in this situation of taking us to court. It intends to put me in prison for 10 to 15 years, which is effectively a life sentence. But they're putting me on trial, and that this is going to be an extraordinary trial. This is going to be a trial where we have to talk about reparations. It's going to be a trial where we have to talk about genocide against Black people in court. The very same stuff that they bombed my house to keep me from talking about, we taking it into the courtroom now. And I'm really hoping that your presence here means that you'll be there with us. I really, really, really hope that. And SWP, I've been working with you for a long time. You made me have to study Marx. Long time, back in the 60s, long time. And we've done quite a few events with SWP militant forums in various other places. But there are other people and groups around this country. And I want to express these extraordinary soldiers who are part of the Uhuru movement. And some of you have been there so long, you know. There was once upon a time, we call them Redbeard. Can't do it anymore. In fact, you might not be able to grow a beard anymore because it ain't gonna be red. It's Ron, who worked in the house that in the Uhuru house in St. Petersburg, Florida, the same one they invaded in St. Petersburg, Florida. Helped to renovate that building, worked on it forever, and I kept them in trouble. Pete, where's Pete? Pete is also, I kept them in trouble because I put so much pressure on them. They said, we'll be finished next week. They knew they couldn't be finished next week, but they said, let's say something. And just incredible soldiers. I want to appreciate you so much and this extraordinary Uhuru Solidarity Movement and this meaningful event here, because this was at one time March Against Genocide. And that goes back in the 80s, and they want to make the Russians responsible for this. And part of what this relies on is the willingness of people to believe that Black people have no agency. Right? That somebody white got to tell us what to do. And if we are angry and we upset and we're doing something, somebody white told us to do it, right? We don't have enough intellect of our own. And this is something that's not as complicated as some people in this room, far-seeing and advanced people in this room might consider, because the truth is that for the longest period of time in history, as we have grown up, most of us, white people have been subjects of history and Africans have simply been objects of history. Objects of history. And I open a book to read. I can't read about myself. You know, when I'm opening a book to read, when I learned about poor Tiny Tim and Bob Cratchit and the rest of them and these terrible stories, I cried crocodile tears was that Tiny Tim? Was that Bob? Tiny Tim, wasn't it? Yeah, there. I cried crocodile tears. I learned how to cry for Tiny Tim, but I didn't learn how to cry for myself. That's what it is to be like an object of history, not a subject. And now what has happened is increasingly over the last period of time, Africans and others are standing up and saying, this is the world as we understand it. And people who are not accustomed to hearing that, because somebody always had a gun to our head, or if you're like Emmett Till, talk about free speech, right? You know, we've always had that at our head. Nobody would dare say the truth, what our own feelings were, but now we are. And people are shocked to hear this. White people, what? You really think that, you know, et cetera. And that's been the case. But we're going to build this magnificent movement. I just want to say one of the things that happened here is they took 9 months after this raid to indict us. I'm sure, and there are several factors here. One, since they didn't indict us, we had no legal standing in a court, right? So we couldn't go to court and say, make them stop, because nothing has happened to us. We are unindicted, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that they wanted us to run. Or the other thing is that they want us to sacrifice the democratic space that we fought for. And we ain't giving it up. They push us into some kind of premature action that can justify coming to our homes at 5 o'clock in the morning and shooting us up and things like that. They want us to put us in that kind of situation where we can do that. We ain't doing that. What we're doing is building healthcare clinics for African women in St. Louis, Missouri. What we're doing is building markets. We've spent $160,000 on a basketball court in the most economically depressed sector of St. Louis. Children basketball, you go to any African community anywhere, the children playing basketball in the streets with little bicycle rims that they make these makeshift basketball things. So we built a basketball court. We bought the land, built a basketball court. It's the first-rate basketball court. You say, what? You build a basketball court? Why you build a basketball court? It's important. It's important. It's important for an African child to be able to experience something other than the garbage that they imposed on us. We didn't just build basketball courts. We did so many other kinds of things, but that's just one example. You know how we built the basketball court? Partially because of reparations. There are white people say, we disagree. We want to make a self-criticism of our participation in what's happened to African people. And they contributed to that. And there are people in this room who've been doing it for 40, 50 years. So I wanted to say that we ain't running. We're not running. We're not running. We're fighting back. And we are fighting back based on what they say they believe in. I didn't write the First Amendment. They did. There's no such thing as an Omali Yeshitela or African People's Social Party or Uhuru Movement First Amendment. It's yours. And you have faced with the question of whether you're going to live up to it or not. Because I'm going to push it in your face. I'm going to choke you with the First Amendment. I'm going to choke you with the rights for democratic space that Black people fought and died for in this country and are still dying for. So I'm not surrendering that. You're not going to make me run. You're going to have to run, right? And speaking of having to run, it's been mentioned, and I think it's important, November 4th. The African People's Socialist Party, part of what we've done is after this brutal murder of Black people, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, just some of you in this country, in 1968 alone, I think it was, something like 30 members of the Black Panther Party killed in this country. And even when they talk about having voting rights, 1965, the Voting Rights Act passed. What else happened in 1965 of significance? They killed Malcolm X. 1968, they killed King. 1969, they killed Fred Hampton. And also in 1969, they arrested 21 members of the Black Panther Party right there in New York. And then the next, and they were arresting Panthers and other people all around this country. So now you got the right to vote, but the only thing you got to vote for is the Democratic Party. And they say, why don't Black people vote? All right? They killed our program. So on November 4th, however, and they make the assumption that Black people, they don't have to promise anything. They don't make promises to Black people. Democratic Party takes it for granted. They had that simpering left-hand jump shooting Negro, Barack Hussein Obama. He didn't make any promise, but you can't call him a lie. He never made a single promise to Black people. Democratic Party don't make a single promise to Black people. All they say is vote for me or the Republican boogeyman will get you. If you don't vote for me, Trump will get you. Use fear as the basis of winning the African vote. Nothing. They give us symbols. Somebody mentioned how this woman who participated in killing Emmett Till was able to die in her bed. Nothing happened to her or anything like that. All of those who committed those kinds of crimes and murders against Black people, no one has ever been put on trial for lynching a Black person. That's what we're looking at. So they make the assumption that we don't have any options, but we do. And it's sitting right here in front of me. And that's the thing that we're going to November 4th with. We've created an anti-colonial free speech movement on July 8th. Was it July 8th? Yeah. something like more than 40 different organizations came together with a fantastic program. We got our own platform. And we're going to march on the White House. I'm hoping that you'll march with us. I know people march when Al Sharpton said march. We call him Al Charlatan, but that's another story. And Democratic Party and all these other forces, we're saying this is the African working class. And other colonized people, Filipinos, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, people who are associated with that kidnapping of Alex Saab. Y'all know that the United States government kidnapped a Venezuelan diplomat and got him locked up in a prison today. And they're talking about democracy, right? So we're marching. I want y'all to march with us. And I want y'all to also help us establish teachings and things like that on universities and stuff around this country. The people need to know something about this history. And part of the extraordinary things that we were successful in doing, with one of the eighth of the demands on this platform has to deal with that nasty war. And they're upset because we said it, and it's true. That's the US war against Russia. Right. And Ukraine is the instrument that's being used to make that war. And they're killing Ukrainians and Russians in the process of making that nasty, nasty war. And so we know that there's some people who quibble around the question of who's right and who's wrong. They don't want the war to happen. So we say, quibble on. We say that they say that they want the end of the war, they want peace. Let's say, let's have peace. And we've got this 40 some odd organizations to agree that all the billions of dollars going toward the war in Ukraine should be paid the long overdue reparations due to Black people. And they all agree to that. So that takes the abstraction, out of this question that we hear from liberals all the time. You know, no money for war, use it for health and schools and education. Like if there were no war, we'd be having a lot of health and schools and education. No. So what we do is we win people to unite with the struggle by African people for reparations. Everybody come out for reparations and say, and tied to that war, billions of dollars being spent on that war. And so I'm hoping that you'll work with us. And I've spoken much too long. I see your eyes glazing over and what have you. Mine too. And I hope that you'll work with us. Let's build for November 4th. Let's build an extraordinary anti-colonial free speech movement. Let's beat them back. Let's choke them with democracy. If they accuse us of weaponizing free speech. How the hell do you do that? They said we weaponize free speech. That's what King George said, probably when they talked about free speech when they stole this land and was trying to justify what the kind of government they're going to set up here. Anyway, thank you, comrades, brothers and sisters. Adelante siempre, forward to Washington, D.C. Uhuru.
Hands on, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. All right, thank you so much, Chairman, for that presentation. I want people in this room to raise your hands if you believe in reparations to African people. All right, okay, let's get into it. Let's make this a reality. We are going to raise some reparations tonight. So we have our slides crew queued up. Mr. Nate. Can't see them, so I don't know. Are they? Yeah. Okay, awesome. All right, so Jesse is going to help us do this. Take the pledge of reparations. Next slide.
Uhuru. I just want to give another round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And I want to encourage people to stick around. There will be discussion a little bit later in the program. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments in response to that brilliant presentation by the chairman. And I just wanted to mention the chairman towards the end of the presentation was talking about the work, the programs that the Uhuru movement has built, in particular in North St. Louis, including the Black community basketball court. And there was an article that was published in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which is a ruling class, generally reactionary newspaper in St. Louis. And this white reporter went into the African working class community in the North Side. And basically what he wrote a story about these indictments and everything. So he's like, well, let me go into the Black community and see what people think about this Uhuru movement, probably hoping that it would help him write a hit piece. But he ends up going around the community, talking to people that are just out in the neighborhoods. And he goes up to a man and he starts asking him, what do you think about this stuff with, the Uhuru movement in Russia? And he's like, I don't know about all that Russia stuff, but go tell the federal government what I want is my 40 acres and a mule. And he had to print that in the newspaper. And then they go to an African woman and her child, and they ask, what do you think about reparations? And, the woman was probably like, who is this white reporter? So she's like, I don't know. And then her kid is like, I don't know, but I love that basketball court. So this shows you the roots that this movement has in the African community and what it means for the people. So I want to salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela. I want to salute Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela again. And next slide, whoops. And again, salute that presentation that we got to see from Chairwoman Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And we're talking about saying no to FBI war on Black liberation, which on the other hand means
say yes to reparations to African people. And so as you can see, people are passing out a pledge card. They want you to think about what reparations you can give tonight. All goes towards Black Star Industries. And you can start right now going to your phone and go to uhurusolidarity.org /pay-reparations.
yes.
Okay.
So this is a photo of one of the marches against genocide that we've talked about. And that's Comrade Mark Anderson. Just want to shout out Mark and Ruby and others who are photographed in there that we've talked about in terms of the long revolutionary tradition of this campaign that we have the honor to be a part of tonight. This is another photo of a march for reparations, a march against genocide. This campaign that's based on the chairman's strategy to build white solidarity with Black power behind enemy lines. And this is a more recent photograph of USM in action, raising the reparations demand. Again, not as a stand of charity, not as a favor, but as an opportunity to change our relationship to African people and rectify this legacy of colonialism that we've talked about tonight.
So reparations, you know what it means, but breaking it down, it means repair the damage for 600 years of slavery, genocide, rape, murder, torture, and untold suffering. And for white people, this reparations is a stand for the right of African people to struggle for liberation and unification of Africa and African people everywhere. Next slide, please. And the African People's Socialist Party calls for reparations to go to this work of Black Star Industries that we're going to show you, the anti-colonial foundation of an independent African working class economy. True reparations means unleashing the stolen resources that's hoarded in the white community and into the hands of the African liberation movement. Next slide, please.
There was a study that was done recently by CARICOM based on the study and methodology of the Uhuru movement's 1982 World Tribunal that calculated that $130 trillion is owed to African people in the Caribbean, which happens to be more than the global gross domestic product of the world economy. So tonight, we are contributing towards just a mere fraction, $30,000 of the national goal of the days of reparations, but every dollar that you contribute has an impact far beyond the value of that dollar, because it contributes towards a movement of African people that are fighting an anti-colonial movement that is fighting to take back everything that belongs to African people into their own hands.
So next slide, our goal tonight is a mere $2,500 We know we can do this. Next slide. As a collective tonight, we can make reparations a reality by contributing to Black Star Industries. Next slide. We have so many people who've already taken a stand for reparations and put it into action. I tried to make a little collage. I'm missing some folks here, but I just want to put forward all the work that Janine, Maureen, Stephanie, Pete, Kara, Nate, Janet, Redbeard, Joel, Ron, Harpani, Sandy, Eric, Erica, Evan, who's on the photos tonight, Poteet, and Doris Warren, and David Tilden. All these people have already put reparations into action through massive yard sale coordinated by Comrade Kara that everybody got involved in, raised $1,000. There was Parpani up in Arcata that walked in the marshes of Arcata and raised $200 in one day. And there's just a whole lot of people, the donation of this space by Janet's organization and just all the work you've done, Janet, with your JK Digest, getting the word out. It's had a profound effect. And yeah, just want to thank everybody who's already put this reparations into action. And the next slide, Black Star Industries, we've talked a lot about it, but it is the economic engine of the African People's Socialist Party. Their tagline is building the Black power economy through collective organization. So the goal of BSI is to begin the process of building an anti-colonial economic system for African people. And the mission is building economic development and commerce for and between African people worldwide. The chairman talked about the flea market in Philadelphia, but there's so many, many examples. Next slide, please.
And I just want to stop for a second and ask the room here, raise your hand if you have confidence that we can exceed the goal to raise $2,500 for Black Star Industries tonight. Okay, right on. Through. I'm with you. So the name Black Star Industries is inspired by the work of Marcus Garvey, who built a movement of 11 million African people collectively contributing towards building Black-owned steamship lines, factories, grocery stores, healthcare, and education programs. And now the party is creating institutions of dual and contending power. So they attacked Garvey, the FBI attacked Garvey for building power in the hands of African people, and they are attacking Chairman Omali Yeshitela today for the same reason.
So next slide, Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela has said, nothing will stop the Uhuru movement from building the independent African economy. And also DC ONA said, the July 29th, 2022 FBI attack on our movement represented an assault against our politics of anti-colonialism and against the work we've done that the people have come to know, love, become a part of, contribute to, defend, and support these institutions, is what she says. So let's make this true tonight by raising $2,500 for BSI. And when you contribute to reparations tonight, this is what you're funding. Next slide.
So your contribution of reparations goes towards BSI programs like the One Africa, One Nation markets, which for decades, the Uhuru movement has coordinated these markets in Philadelphia, in St. Louis, in St. Petersburg, and elsewhere, hosting hundreds of Black vendors who have used the market to launch their own businesses and build community commerce that allow resources to circulate within the African community.
Next slide, the Black Power Blueprint. Since 2017, Black Star Industries and the African People's Education Defense Fund have partnered to sponsor a multifaceted development initiative in St. Louis, Missouri, called the Black Power Blueprint. It's an anti-gentrification project that has acquired abandoned properties and developed them into community-based programs that benefit and uplift the people, such as the Uhuru House Community Center, the Garden, Black Community Basketball Court, murals portraying the spirit of the African community, a doula training project for African women, and upcoming Black Women's Health Center. Next slide.
Black Star Industries is also home to Burning Spear Media, the publishing arm of the African People's Socialist Party that puts out the Burning Spear newspaper and the books and pamphlets of the chairman, as well as Overturning the Culture of Violence by Chairwoman Penny Hess. So this is the exercise of freedom of speech the US government is attempting to silence, bringing the theory of African internationalism to the masses of African and colonized peoples.
Next slide. Uhuru Foods and Pies is a beloved institution of Black Star Industries, in particular in Oakland, California, and St. Petersburg, Florida, with roots going over 30 years, baking, selling, and distributing pies and other foods. This is more than just delicious pie on the back table there. It is a seed of building the capacity for the African community control of the means of food production and distribution. Next slide.
Under the umbrella of BSI, we also find Uzi, a thread of freedom custom clothing line developed by the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement as an economic self-reliance program to fund their political work. And for more than 3 decades, Impedum has relentlessly campaigned in defense of democratic rights for African people, exposing police violence, mass incarceration, and even coordinating the Africans Charged Genocide campaign, one of the so-called overt acts in the US government's bogus indictment.
Next slide. Decolonize is the hair and body care products line developed by the African National Women's Organization to fund their work advancing and protecting the interests of African women, including their heroic campaign, Arrest CPS, to defend Black mothers and children from the colonial kidnapping agency that splits African families apart for profit in the colonial system. Next slide.
And Uhuru Planet is another BSI program. We have Uhuru Planet shirts here for sale, producing and selling apparel with revolutionary African internationalist messages and designs to fundraise for the work of the African People's Solidarity Committee, including the operation of its BSI-owned Uhuru Solidarity Center in South St. Louis, one of the buildings that came under attack by the FBI raids last July 29. And as the chairman mentioned in his presentation, these programs extend throughout the world, are part of the African People's Socialist Party's work to create an international African anti-colonial working class economy. And pictured here is Director Tafari Mugeri in occupied Azania, or known as the colonial name of South Africa, and other members of the party and Impedum there who are building the African revolution on the continent. And I also want to salute and shout out people who are contributing online. We'll be announcing those in just a moment, but if you're one of those people, you can go to uhurusolidarity.org/pay-reparations. And finally, all of this work that we're talking about today, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the same organization under the leadership of the chairman that is forging ahead in this period in the face of these desperate attacks by the US government to build the anti-colonial free speech movement and to take us towards the March on the White House on November 4th.
So how to donate, you can pay on the website, uhurusolidarity.org. You can do that from your phone. You can go to the sign-in table, turn in your pledge card. They'll be calculating what we're raising tonight. You can also contribute with cash or make a check to Uhuru, UHURU.
You can also become a sustaining member. If you go to uhurusolidarity.org/join, you can make a monthly contribution of reparations to the work of Black Star Industries by becoming a member from any amount, $5 a month up to $500 a month, or whatever amount you can do in terms of your monthly sustainership to the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And that's another way of contributing towards the goal today. You
can also become a general member of USM, $25 a year. So at this time, right? At this 25. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
At this time, we have a special guest for our appeal. Before we bring him up, he was actually mentioned just a few moments ago. Before we bring him up, we wanted to ask our audience in the room tonight and those of us who are online, is there anyone in the room tonight that would like to go ahead and contribute $2,500 in reparations to the work of Black Star Industries? All right, Uhuru, you can also do it anonymously. And I let that silence sit for a second because some people might have been scribbling something anonymously. But yes, we want to make that call and also acknowledge that if there are people who would like to do way more than that, even the whole 30,000 of the national pledge, we have something called the Reparations Legacy Project. You can contact us, info@uhurusolidarity.org. We can set up a meeting with you to talk about how you can make a larger contribution as well. So now we'd like to ask, is there anybody that would like to give $1,000 in reparations to the work of Black Star Industries?
And that includes the people online. We have our chat monitors, if people are watching online and want to give $1,000 tonight.
All right, well, we'll keep it going.
Keep it going.
Is there anybody that would like to contribute $500? $500 reparations to support the anti-colonial work and programs of Black Star Industries tonight.
And you can pay tonight, or you could pay, by the end of the month, you could pay, right, by the end of the month. Yeah, this campaign goes throughout October. All right, so should we take it
Let's cut that in half.
Okay, so
200, right? Yes, 250. Okay, we have a hand.
Alright, we got
And that is Comrade Redbeard, and we have Comrade 300 from Comrade Joel. And Poteet,
Wow.
Uhuru.
Right, we also have a contribution, well, no, we won't say that yet, because we want to see anybody wants to match Joel and Poteet or Redbeard with another 250 or 300. Anybody want to match that? All right, well, we're gonna take it, so Maureen Wagner has contributed $150 tonight. Thank you.
Maureen.
Anybody want to match Maureen with that 150? Okay, a little bit of silence here, so we'll just keep it going. Anybody, how about 100? Anybody going for 100 tonight? All right.
We have 100.
We have 100.
Uhuru, Stephanie.
All right, another 100 from Pete.
Uhuru Pete.
It looks like we're at 750. Is that what you got? Let's see, we got some other messages coming in. Oh, we also have Robert Gallup from, I think, way back in the day, donated $40.
Uhuru.
Awesome, Uhuru. Okay, so we're at, anybody want to match Pete's 100?
I would like to match.
Okay.
Oh, we have a hand back there.
We got a hand back there. Awesome. Nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Who is that?
Kalia.
Aaliyah.
Kalia.
Aaliyah.
We're
Uhuru.
gonna match that 100?
I'm gonna match the 100.
Okay.
Yes.
So according to my calculations, we're at 950.
Let's keep the hundreds going.
The hundreds coming. Anybody else want to match that 100? All right, Sandy in Washington is doing 25.
Uhuru
All right,
Sandy.
We're at 975. Anybody want to go for $50? Let's go down to 50. All right, what's your name?
I'm Tyler.
Tyler.
Tyler,
Thank you so much.
$50. Uhuru. Anyone else want to match Tyler? All right, 50 from Comrade Eric.
All right, so,
Oh, we
yeah,
have another hand.
50, all right.
Ron, Ron.
So we're
We have $50 from Kitty, Uhuru Kitty, watching online.
right on Kitty. So we're at 1,175. Uhuru, and there's more coming in. Let's see, that was Kitty. Okay, got that. All right.
And then I know people were filling out their pledge cards and did we collect all of those already? No? Okay. So we're gonna collect, yes, we have a hand in the back.
There's 38 in addition, $38.
$38 from the room, Uhuru. Does anybody want to contribute any other random amount? Just shout it out. Just let us know. Yes. What was that? 25, Uhuru Janine.
And I just want to recognize all the people who've already donated to and raised funds to put on this event. You think it's time to tell them?
Let's do it.
Okay,
Yes.
so we actually already raised $1,140 coming into this event. So $1,140 plus 1238.
We're getting close.
Getting really close. We've got $2,378. So our goal is 2,500. So we just need $122.
22.
to make the goal
$122.
I know we're
Okay,
gonna,
we got a hand in the back.
yeah. You can do it.
Oh.
All right.
Yes,
All
now,
right, you guys, we did it. We raised reparations. We raised our goal tonight. And don't stop the donations from coming in. We can still keep the reparations going. We want to bring Comrade Redbeard right up, right now. Uhuru.
Good evening, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, fantastic emceeing, Wendy. In April of 1978, Heba Sheshe, a member of the African People's Socialist Party, invited me and my coworkers to join the July 4th movement to free Desi Woods and subsequently the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. Wait, I have a prop. Here is the story of Desi Woods. If you can get a hold of it and read it, do it. I'm willing to share this copy. Someone tonight, I would be willing to own this copy too. Okay, it's both a privilege and an opportunity for me, a white working class guy and trade union veteran, to be in this room and on the stage. To defend the chairman and the Uhuru Free is a great opportunity for all white workers. To have agency in the future, to defend free speech, and to facilitate the ever-emerging forces of international socialism. I am ever and always grateful to the chairman personally and to the party's line itself, which, like the chairman, has been steadfast, consistent, and welcoming to me for almost my entire adult life. All of my solidarity work, pretty much, has been in Uhuru Foods and Pies, and therefore, I'm just so fortunate and love knowing and working with Ona Zene Yeshitela. A shout out here to my comrade, immediate supervisor in Uhuru Foods, and an old friend. We met when she was just 19 years old, Maureen Wagon. Over the years, and there have been many, scores of white people like myself have contributed to Uhuru Foods and Pies. Right. They have come and they have gone for many personal and political reasons. I would like to acknowledge all of them here tonight on the night of reparations. I was organized under the principle of material and political support for the African independence movement. And over the years, we have come to understand all the manifestations of political and material support to be reparations. This is, it's all right here for me. This is my rite of passage into Uhuru movement. And it's available on Burning Spear Marketplace. And I will also loan anyone who's interested my copy of this because I have another one. I stand for reparations because through the party, I'm understanding how my life depends on the colonization of African people and the theft of the indigenous people's land. And I encourage my fellow white workers to do the same, because in addition to the obvious benefits to the African community, reparations represents our own repair as white people. And the potential for salvation from this terrible thing, should we choose to accept it. Jesse's fantastic. Asked me why I've been a part of this movement for so many years. Well, I was invited. My family and I were welcomed warmly. I was fulfilled personally and politically. The party's line, like the chairman himself, remains relevant and accessible. And then time passed and I grew old, no more red beard. And lastly, I extend my acknowledgement and appreciation to Penny Hess and APSC for your steadfastness, conviction, and tenacity. Uhuru.
Thank you, Redbeard. That was so meaningful. I really appreciate that, Uhuru. So, yeah, we have a question. We're going to open up for questions right now, but I want to see if there's any updates on the donations coming in. You know, okay, we'll get back to that. But we do have a mic over here, and we ask that if you have questions, you come to the mic. We do have one question that already came in from Del Sendero. Paul Caritis. When will the Uhuru 3 go to court and try and get the charges dropped? I thought that was going to happen soon. So maybe somebody can explain what happened.
Yes, you might want to step forward.
I just want to tell the comrade that we were just in Tampa, Florida, federal court on the 28th, of this month, to hear oral arguments, which we thought was relatively positive, because we had filed a motion. Our lawyer had filed a motion for the dismissal of the charges, and the prosecution, the state. Filed a motion in opposition to that. Then a lawyer filed another very brief motion, and then asked for oral arguments to hear the case, to hear the motions. And we were surprised that the court actually granted this oral argument. So we were in Tampa just on the 28th to hear the oral arguments. That happens sometimes, but most often it's likely that they'll say that this is something that a jury should decide and not a judge, you know, listening to oral arguments in terms of whether the case should be dropped or not. I don't know, Jesse, you want to?
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. I mean, that pretty much covers the updates on it. I would just add, you can read those documents by going to handsoffuhuru.org/motion to dismiss. The motion for dismissal of the indictment, the government's response to it, and the Uhuru 3 lawyers' reply to that. And we strongly recommend people do read and study those documents. The ones put forward by the Uhuru 3 legal team were very powerful.
Yeah, we think our security is based in part on people being able to read those documents, see what the state said, see what we said in response to it. And we think that's where our security is, because they, again, are put in the situation of determining whether or not they're going to go by the law or not. And it's important for you to see that. Also, I just want to say in terms of the fundraising that's going on, that one of the objectives of the attack is to take us off our programs and off the work that we do, and then have us spend all the money that we have, like defending ourselves. I think we had to raise what, 200 and how much money do we with the first round, it was,
240.
yeah, so, like $250,000 in the first round. That's when, so they would have us, they did $40,000 worth of damage in terms of the windows and doors they broke in and the computers and other things that they stole from us. So that's part of what the objective is, to keep us from doing this work. And that's why it's so important. That's why this fundraising has been so important. And Uhuru.
Yes, well, I'm new to Uhuru, and I know that you did have this, but I'm not yet. I'm wondering what the vision for the future is or would be for a society led by the African Socialist Party. How will the economy work?
We believe that people who collectively produce the value should collectively own and control that value, and should be the governing forces in a society. Those who produce the value should collectively own it. The situation we have now is that the people produce the value and own nothing, and those who don't produce value own everything. I think some people refer to that as socialism or communism, et cetera. So that's where we are. There has to be a total overturning of a social system based on exploitation. Based on exploitation. It's nasty. You know that. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Janet. Was that sufficient, Janet? Do I need to say something else? I just mentioned that about the economic aspect of it, which is really fundamental, because the collective leadership by the people is critical into any kind of social society that we're going to have. That's our view of it anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, so right now I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the money that's donated is going to the Black Smart Industries,
Right.
which is under
Right.
the so it's going to your organization.
It's going to those programs, that basketball court, that organization. I don't even play basketball. You understand? But it's going to the basketball, it's going to the community. That's what all the programs, the doula programs. When they attacked my home at 5 o'clock in the morning, my wife and I happened to be awake and sitting around the table at that time because she was preparing to preside over the meeting where we were training 14, 15 African women to be doulas in a city, St. Louis, where enough Black babies die the first year of life to fill 15 kindergarten classes. So I guess you can say that's our programs, communities. That's what it is. It's, yeah.
But it's more.
Go ahead, but it's what?
But did I hear you say that the oral arguments was something of an unusual event? And so could you elaborate on why?
I think there are a lot of things happening right now in this country, in this world. I referenced some of them. The ruling class in this country has to solve certain problems for itself. I've never seen since the 60s as many political trials happening at the same time. All of these are not leftist political trials. I mean, when you look at what's happening, I'm talking about Trump, I'm talking about the January 6th, I'm talking about the Tampa 5, all of those cases, these are political trials. And I think that this question of free speech is something that the bourgeoisie has to make some kind of determination on as well. So I think that's why. I think this gives them an opportunity, if they want to, they can resolve this one way or another. I mean, we talk about political trial, part of it is clear, like with Trump. But then you got a sector of the bourgeoisie that's even putting Biden on trial. They call it impeachment. You know what I mean? So this is, everything is up in the air and whatever. So I think this is the question that they're going to have to resolve, that they need to resolve themselves. How they go with it is something that will be determined by what we do, I believe, masses of people and how we make our presence known. I think will be a major factor, but I think that's one of the reasons that they did it, Redbeard, that they needed, this is an issue they need to resolve themselves. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. We have to be out of this building by 10 o'clock, so.
The party's been. Okay, I've been around for a minute. The party-
Yeah, you used to take all my soul albums from the furniture store. But go ahead.
It's like the party's always breaking ground, breaking new territory, whether it's Uhuru Bakery or Africa or everything. And I was just wondering, why now? Why do you think suddenly in 2022? This.
I'll tell you part of what I believe about that. I made the point that that Africa has been central to the development of this whole social system. Africa. Who is head of the Department of Defense? His name is Lloyd Austin. He's a black man, a former general, if there's such thing as a former general. Look at who is the first time in the 240 some odd year history of the Marine Corps, they made a black man a 4-star general. And what did they put him over? AFRICOM, controlling Africa, and not only, and also to contend with China, Russia, and the African people in Africa. The person who is head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as I say, the chief of all of the military forces in this country is an African from the Air Force. They just, 2 or 3 days ago, they just confirmed him. Africa is central to their plans. African people, Africa has not been able to speak with a single voice for a long time. They carved up Africa. So there are 54 different Africas. And Africans are being chased all across the continent of Africa, into the sea and stuff, dying, despicable kinds of deaths, and then all of our resources being ripped off. I mean, people celebrate, especially in California, like Steve Jobs and what have you, but that coltan that went into those computers and those resources, they come from Congo and other places. It's the most critical piece of land on earth. The whole 12 million square miles of nothing but value, but it's always overlooked when you look at them talk. But anyway, so I think that's a critical question now. China is contending, Russia is contending, US, everybody's got an Africa plan, and we have one too. And I think that because we are in all those 4 places, and talking in all those places, organized, I think that's part of what it is. And also, as our lawyer said, because we have our own newspaper, our own radio station, et cetera, so we say what it is that we want to say, and we got fabulous friends like you. So as support, So I think that's part of what it is. I think, and plus we plan to govern. We're coming from a period of this long period of time where the organizing is becoming Facebook militants or social media militants. There's, like we plan to govern. That's our objective, Janet. We plan to govern. We're not here, if you're not talking about power, it's a useless discussion. And that's one of the things we've introduced with this with the November 4th mobilization, that the 40 different organizations slogan is all power to the people. Old slogan, isn't it? All power to the people, black power to the African nation. Because nobody's even talking about power anymore. They're talking about appeasing imperialism or something like that without even discussion of power. The people have to have power. If you don't have power on the agenda, you're just wasting time. So I think that's part of what it is, Redbeard. And I'm told that we have to, somebody's telling me, and I think that means shut up and get down, something to that effect. Yeah. So Uhuru. Yeah, thank you, Comrade Uhuru.
Uhuru, so I just want to report that we had $30 coming from Janet, we had 25 coming from Penny, 25 from Megan. So we now surpassed our goal, we raised $2,580. So I also want to just make mention, I think there's an October 11th meeting of the Foods and Pies. Yeah.
And all out for November 4th. March, well, Black People's March on the White House. And I just want to appreciate everybody for coming out tonight. You stuck it out, and we do need your help breaking it down. So please sit around, help us break it down. And I want to end by saying, you think through.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.